What happens when you don't have time to do the work you're employed to do because of some external event or project? Well, I got asked that very question last week, and today I'm going to answer it because it happened to me. Now, one of the core concepts that I teach is something I call doing your core work. Now, your core work will be defined as the work that you are employed to do or the work that you are evaluated on. This is your critical work. It's the work that essentially earns your living. So if you neglect this work, then everything's going to fall apart. If you run a business, your business will go bankrupt. If you are an employee, you're probably going to get fired. So this is the critical work, the work that must be done. A quick example would be if you're a salesperson and you spend all day in internal sales meetings and then dealing with admin, you're not selling. Therefore, you're not doing your core work. And eventually, either your income is going to become so low that you have to leave, or your company would probably fire you. A salesperson is employed to sell. So any activity that requires you to sell, that's your core work. It isn't doing admin forms and it isn't sitting inside internal meetings. But that's just a quick overrun of your core work. If you want to learn more about that, I'll put a link to a blog post I wrote about it in the show notes. But let's get on to this question. So the question was, is there any conceivable situation where you would put aside your core work to work on something else? Now the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. And the second part of that is, it happened to me last week. Now the reason it happened to me last week is because over the last few months I've been putting together or been changing my learning center and have recently launched what I call my Productivity Academy. Now my academy is all about working with people directly in groups and helping them to be able to build their own time management and productivity systems. Now this required a big shift in my learning center, which for years has been based around standalone courses. So there's been a lot of work doing, redesigning websites, upgrading some of my courses, removing some of my older, retiring some of my older courses, and basically doing a huge cleanup and then a complete redesign. It's taken hours and hours and hours, and last week was the week before the launch because the launch was on the 1st of August. Now you'd think for productivity and time management specialists such as myself, this would be no problem. We'd schedule the time, we'd make sure it happens, and we have all the carefully blocked out our calendar. We allow enough time to get everything done. Yeah, now you might read that in textbooks and you might actually see that in movies if there's any movies about productive people. But the reality of life is that never happens. The reality of life is things you think might take 20 minutes is going to take you 4 hours. Things that you're going to take 4 hours actually takes you an hour. It's a complete mismatch of guesstimation, estimation, surprises, interruptions, and reaching the deadline absolutely exhausted. And that's exactly what happened to me. And therefore last week I basically had to push my core work aside so that I could work on getting this project across the line by the 1st of August. It also involved late nights, early mornings. Yeah, when I got to the weekend, I was pretty exhausted. And I'm supposed to be a time management and productivity expert. The thing is, I'm also a human being. All of us are going to be faced with this kind of situation from time to time. The good news is it doesn't happen every day. Now, it shouldn't be happening every day. And if it does happen every day, there is a problem within your own time management and productivity system. You possibly haven't put any barriers in place so that people can just walk into your workspace and say, hey, can we have a chat? Or you're jumping on messages as soon as they come in, or your emails, you basically live in your inbox. Now, if that's you, do, yeah, sure, you're not going to get a lot of work done because you're spending all day reacting. But what I'm talking about here is specific project work. Projects are designed with a deadline in mind. And sometimes those deadlines are hard, as in my case last week, it was a hard deadline. I'd sent out emails and communications, I'd mentioned it in blog posts, that on the 1st of August, my Productivity Academy would be launching. There was no getting away from it. It had to launch, and I only had 7 days to finish it. Now, fortunately, a lot of the hard work, like developing the courses, building out how to do the live events, the live training events, yeah, sure, all that was taken care of. What needed to be done was the more administrative stuff, like making sure the websites were up to date, rewriting text so that courses meant something, building out a roadmap so people knew when they joined the academy how to run down the courses, and so that they can just follow a pathway. But that then helps me when it comes to putting out the live events, organizing and scheduling the live events. It's a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And the other thing that you will find in situations like this is if you're trying to stick to a very strict 9 till 5 routine, you're going to be very, very, very stressed, and you're probably going to miss the deadline. There were days last week, specifically Tuesday and Wednesday, when I basically worked from 8:30 in the morning right through to 11:30 in the evening. Now, there were breaks for meals or breaks to take Louis for his walk, and I did a little bit of exercise. But the rest of the time, I was basically working on this project. And that, I'm afraid, is life when projects are coming due. It's just the nature of them, but it doesn't happen every day, it doesn't happen every week, and I will be taking a few days off in August to just basically vegetate and do nothing. There's a great line that Robin Sharma uses, which he often says that projects or new things that you're doing in life are exciting at the beginning, very messy in the middle, and just gorgeous at the end. And I so agree with that sentiment. When I started this idea of building out the Productivity Academy, I basically was really excited. I had these visions of all the things I wanted to include in this, how I was going to design the websites, how everything was going to fit together. And then I started doing the work, and it just got messier and messier and messier. My desktop was a complete mess. I had screenshots, image files, documents all over the place. It was fun, but it was very, very messy. And then as the things started to come together on Thursday and Friday, the pressure started building because your brain is telling you, no, you've got all this stuff still to do. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to have to do all this work. And the pressure really does start building. But I also knew that because of where I live, which is in the Far East, that means that when I say I'm launching on Saturday morning at the very earliest is going to be about 4 or 5 p.m. my time when Europe wakes up. And it's not even going to be until probably 10, 11 o'clock at night on Saturday for when the US starts waking up. So I also had all day Saturday to put the finishing touches, to do the testing. Yeah, it was a very, very busy day on Saturday. When I woke up on Sunday morning, it was like, I don't have to do all that. But then I was getting emails from people asking me various questions about how this worked or that worked. So there was a lot of communication to be done on Sunday. So it didn't actually stop. But the main message of this particular email, this video that I'm doing today is that yes, on a day-to-day basis, knowing what your core work is critical. You do need to know what you're employed to do, how you earn your income, and what activities are required in order for you to do that. But there are always going to be occasions where you have to throw all that out the door and put all your time and effort into a project or something else that needs your attention. That's just life getting in the way. That's how life works. It's not a nice straight line. And if it was, it would be incredibly boring. So these weeks that we have, or 2 weeks, or even months, where it's like, I've got to spend a lot of time doing a lot of different types of work, enjoy it, because you're getting yourself away from the mundane. And they're teaching you things. I learned so much last week about what I am capable of doing and what I'm probably not capable of doing. I also learned how to better delegate some of the tasks to my team, which I've been terrible at. These things is all there to help us. They're all here to teach us things and to make us better people overall. But you are going to have weeks where things don't go according to plan. You are going to have weeks where you're going to have to put your regular work on hold for a few days while you put your attention and focus on something else that is ultimately going to improve things either in your business, in your career, or whatever. So the answer to the question is there any conceivable times when you would throw out your core work? The answer is yes. Fortunately, and it shouldn't, for this should be the same for you, it shouldn't be happening on a week-to-week basis. If it is, you probably need to look at the barriers that you have in place to say, no, this is not my core work, this is my core work. But if it's happening occasionally, that's just life. It's just the way that life operates and the way that our working lives happen. And if we go back thousands and thousands of years when we were hunter-gatherers and we had to go out and find food every day, occasionally we'd probably find a chicken or something very small, and we might have spent inordinate amount of time chasing a chicken. But then we might have been lucky one day and got up and found a wild boar and found that for food. So you are going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, that's just life. The ideal situation is that you automate as much of your work as you can. Now, when I say automate, I'm not talking about using AI tools to do it for you. What I'm meaning is that, okay, I've got time set aside for doing admin, I've got time set aside for doing my core work, and the rest of the time I'm available for anything that happens. But I can assure you, my experiences last week just reinforced the fact that life, from time to time, gets in the way, and you have to drop things that you wouldn't ordinarily do in order to get those projects across the line. That's fine, but I would always recommend that you give yourself 2 or 3 days after you've finished to catch up, to get back on top of your email and admin, particularly in the messages that have come in while you've been focused on the project. Those things will back up whether you like it or not. So make sure you get back on top of those. One thing I did make sure I did last week was I did spend at least 30 minutes a day at the end of the day just catching up on my actionable messages and emails, because I know that those things will back up and backlog, and that'll just make it horrendous once the project has completed. So there you go. There's the answer to the question. Is there any conceivable time that you would ditch your core work? The answer is yes. Now, if you want to learn more about my system, or if you want to learn more about the Academy, I will put details of that in the show notes. And the next video I suggest you watch is this video up here, which shows my normal system in action.